Hello NFL fans and welcome back to the Wall of NFL YouTube channel. In this video today, I'm going to be talking about my predictions for the 2021 season. 2 months ago, I made my predictions for all the divisions and all the teams and talking about how I thought each team would do in terms of record. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my amendments to those predictions and whether I think the NFC teams are going to finish the same or better or worse than I originally predicted 2 months ago. So kicking things off with the NFC North, I think the Bears are going to finish 7-10. This is actually the same as what I originally predicted them because I still don't think they're going to be anywhere near as good as what they should be. Matt Nagy, I still think is a really good head coach, so if the Bears do fire him on this season, I think it's going to be a bad decision, but he is going to struggle for sure. I think Andy Dalton at quarterback, he's definitely a placeholder, and I think the quicker they can get Justin Fields into the lineup, the better. Justin Fields, whilst he might not be ready just yet, I think he is going to be their solution, and I'm sure that he'll play this season. I think that with Matt Nagy comparing him to Mahomes and Alex Smith, I think it's not quite a great comparison because Alex Smith was actually decent at quarterback, and they were still finishing 11-6 before Mahomes stepped in. But with Justin Fields, Andy Dalton won't be finishing 11-6 this year, so Justin Fields might get his opportunity around Thanksgiving or maybe a bit after that. Now onto the Detroit Lions. I think they're going to have a really bad season, and I think they're going to finish 3-14. I don't think that I could give them any more than that because their roster's just so poor. Matthew Stafford was really carrying them to all of their playoff appearances and any of their wins really, and I've got to say, the fact that he had to leave just shows that the Detroit Lions were not getting their act together in any way, shape or form. I think it's got to be said that getting rid of Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff and a few draft picks was not great business. And I know they had to respect Matthew Stafford's decision to leave after all they've done for him, or all he's done for them, sorry. But yeah, I've got to say the Lions aren't looking good this year. Now on to the Packers. I think that the Packers are going to have a really good season, and I've actually given them an extra win on what I thought they would do 2 months ago. If you remember back to 2 months ago, Aaron Rodgers was having a really torrid time with the Packers organization. There were words being sent back and forth and a lot of bad blood, mostly from Rodgers' side because of the drafting of Jordan Love. But now that's all resolved and Aaron Rodgers has a new contract. I think that they're actually going to get an extra win and they're going to really challenge for the NFC Championship game and potentially the Super Bowl as well. Finally, onto the Vikings. I don't think they'll have the most successful season. I think they will still struggle because they have got a declining defense and a Kirk Cousins who, as good quarterbacks come into the league, is slowly dropping down in the rankings, and he's kind of the definition of a game manager. So sorry Vikings fans, I think you'll only finish 9-8, and despite the fact that it's positive and you may challenge for the playoffs, I think you might have some tricky times, especially with head-to-head record against the Saints and the Cardinals, and it's going to be a bit of a battle there to see who can get that last wildcard spot. Now on to last year's worst division by an awful long way. Last year, the Washington football team won the division with a 7-9 record, which goes to show how bad it really was. But this year, I think they'll win the division with a positive record of 10-7. This gives them an extra win over, I think, the Cowboys, because I think the Cowboys 2 months ago, I predicted them to win the division 10-7, and instead now I've given that 10-7 to Washington football team and an extra loss to the Cowboys, which actually puts the football team ahead of the Cowboys. And I think that's really a pretty smart decision. I don't know how I thought the Cowboys were going to do so well. I guess the return of Dak Prescott from injury, I think really is going to boost the Cowboys, but is nowhere near what they need. They need a lot of defensive improvement, and I've got to say their offensive weapons are really good, but that aging offensive line could be a real problem later on in the stretch. I think that the Washington football team adding Ryan Fitzpatrick and Curtis Samuel will give the offense what it needs to be a bit more explosive rather than just like game managing like it was last year. I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick though can be a little bit volatile, so I wouldn't expect them to win any more than 10, and I think they'll still win the division despite his erratic throwing and not always being able to do what needs to be done. Now, as I said with the Cowboys, they need a lot of things on defense to really get them to where they need to be to really compete against the Washington football team. Dak Prescott coming back is a real boost to the team because he is definitely the best quarterback in the division. And in the first 4 games of the season last year, he was averaging around 400 yards, which is actually ridiculous. The Cowboys are very reliant on Dak Prescott, as I've kind of already said, but the Cowboys really need a little bit more than just Dak Prescott. Ezekiel Elliott needs to step up. The wide receivers, they were pretty good last year, but that aging offensive line, again, is a real problem, which needs to be sorted out. This isn't going to be their year, and whilst they aren't going to make the playoffs, they could actually challenge, similar to the Vikings already can, and the Cardinals and the Saints. There's going to be a real battle for that 7th and possibly 6th wildcard spot going into the playoffs. On to the Giants now, and I think that 8 and 9 is about right for them, which is what I predicted them 2 months ago. I really don't think that they're going to get much better because Daniel Jones is a serial fumbler. He drops the ball all over the place and causes a lot of turnovers. But even if he does sort that out, I don't think that offensive line is really going to be good enough to help that offense to get a lot better than it was a couple of this last year. I think that despite them getting a lot of new weapons for Daniel Jones to throw to, it won't be good enough. And despite their defense being really good, that won't be good enough either. I really have a lot of doubts about the Giants. I think the Eagles are going to have a really poor year if you ask me. I think they're going to finish around 5 and 12 or 6 and 11 a push, which I've actually given to them in the end out of sympathy. But I think their team is full of backups, even up to Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts, he has pretty good legs to run around with, but nowhere near as good as Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson, or even Josh Allen at that as well. So I think that if you haven't got legs as good as them, and the throwing isn't the top notch, even as good as Teddy Bridgewater, I think they've got a lot to work on. So with all that to work on, I think they're going to be finishing bottom of the NFC East, which is nothing to be excited about. The NFC South was actually kind of a difficult division to predict, not because of the Buccaneers or the Saints, because I think we can all agree that the Buccaneers are going to smash the division and go 14 and 3 at the very least, and the Saints are going to finish around 9 and 8, which is pretty much the consensus among most people. But the Panthers and the Falcons are really hard predictions if you ask me. I think the Falcons are going to finish 6 and 11, which is no improvement really on how they were last year. Whilst they do have Matt Ryan, who's a very decent quarterback, and they just drafted Kyle Pitts, who is a potential future Hall of Famer if you ask a lot of the top college football analysts. And also they have Calvin Ridley at wide receiver. That's a lot to look out for and a lot to be excited for if you're a Falcons fan. They also have Arthur Smith, who as the Titans offensive coordinator last year, and it could really help the Falcons to improve. But what I think they really needed is a defensive coach. Their defense is really bad, and I know Dan Quinn was a defensive coach, but over the last few years, well, Dan Quinn was their previous head coach. He was a defensive coach. I think over the last few years, they've been really, really bad defensively. And since that Super Bowl, they've just gone downhill year after year. And I think that they won't really be able to get back from that, even just this first year after getting Arthur Smith. I think it might take a year or two and potentially even waiting to replace Matt Ryan in a few years' time before they can start challenging for the NFC South title again. This year, the Panthers have a really good opportunity to show the world that offensively, they're a really dangerous side. They have new quarterback Sam Darnold, who can finally show the world what he's made of after spending 3 years on the Jets, who were just dreadful for him. They've also drafted Terrence Marshall, so Sam Darnold has a new weapon. They have Robbie Anderson, who was Sam Darnold's favourite weapon at the Jets. Matt Rule, at head coach, has an awful lot of weapons at his disposal, and not to mention Christian McCaffrey at running back, who I think we can all agree might be the best running back in the NFL. Maybe aside from Derrick Henry, but they're two very different styles. Their defense, though, is woeful, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them get smashed as a Saints fan. They're going to be in a lot of shootouts during the season because of how bad that defense is. And whilst they did improve the offense this offseason, next offseason, they really need to work on their defense. Now that the Saints have chosen Jameis Winston as their starting quarterback, I think they're going to finish 9 and 8, which is what I actually originally predicted them. But I think that either Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston, they were going to finish 9 and 8, but they're going to finish potentially even more than 9 and 8, I think, after choosing Jameis Winston over Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston has a big cannon of an arm, and he's really going to have to work on not throwing some interceptions, but I think he was the better decision for them to make. Sean Payton is an excellent head coach, and the Saints' defense is actually really good as well. They have, of course, Cam Jordan at defensive end, who I think could be a future Hall of Famer, but I am a Saints fan, so I'll hold my hands up there. They also have Davenport at other defensive end, who has been a bit of a disappointment since being drafted a few years ago, but I think that this year in the preseason, he's been a bit of a game wrecker, so I'm kind of excited to see how he does as well. Got Williams at safety and Lattimore at corner, and their defense I actually think is quite stacked. There's a bit of a question at their backup cornerback position, so maybe there could be a few shootouts going forward. They've also got Demario Davis at linebacker, who I nearly forgot. So anyway, I'm really excited to watch the Saints defensively this year. If Jameis Winston can get the ball to his weapons, I think they'll be really good going forward as well. Of course, the Buccaneers, they're definitely going to win the division. I think they're going to go 14-3, and really they're going to knock everyone in this division out of the park. I don't think that they'll finish the division 6-0, but they will definitely win it. And I think they'll get the number 1 seed in the NFC as well. They may have a challenge in the Rams or the Seahawks or 49ers, but I think it's pretty much locked in. If the Buccaneers don't win the division, it'll be because I think they won't take it as seriously as they need to, because they know that to win the Super Bowl, you don't need to win that many games in the regular season. Just 11 or so and win the division, and then once the regular season's over, then it's time to work hard, just like Tom Brady always shows his teams how to do. Now onto the NFC West division, and I think I got a little bit ahead of myself with the 49ers, predicting them 12-5 2 months ago. I actually think they'll go 11-6, potentially 10-5 as well. I think their roster is not quite as deep as the Rams, for example, so I think the Rams will actually take this division pretty easily in the end. But the 49ers, they do have a lot to fight for, and I do think they'll really challenge a lot of teams in the postseason and regular season as well. I think I got ahead of myself mostly because they drafted Trey Lance, and whilst I knew he wasn't going to start, I was quite excited to watch the 49ers play. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance are going to kind of go back and forward whether which one starts and which one plays. I think Trey Lance will come in and do a lot of running plays, a lot of potential play action passes as well. So there's a lot to look out for Trey Lance coming onto the field, and I don't think he will fully sit out of the year. Even if Jimmy Garoppolo stays fully healthy, he'll definitely get a few drives in here and there. Now onto the Rams. The Rams are a brilliant team, and I think they will be the team to challenge the Buccaneers to get to the Super Bowl. I think they'll finish 12-5, but they could potentially finish even higher as well, but their division is actually really tough. I think the fact that they've got Jalen Ramsey at corner, who pretty much changes the whole secondary and changes the whole way teams defend, because they know that if they put Jalen Ramsey on the other team's top receiver, it's a locked down day for him. They also have Aaron Donald, who is brilliant at rushing the passer, and that defense is pretty much tipped to be the best in the league this year, so there's a lot of potential there. Offensively, Sean May must be buzzing to have Matthew Stafford in the lineup. Having him now at quarterback and not having to coach him as much as he would with Jared Goff is going to be a real benefit to the Rams. And as I said in my MVP predictions video, I think that Matthew Stafford really could win the MVP this year. Next up, the Cardinals. I think they will finish bottom of this division at 9-8. No change to what I thought 2 months ago, but I think they will finish bottom, unfortunately, despite the fact that they actually have a pretty good team. I have a lot of faith in Kyler Murray, and now adding JJ Watt and Chandler Jones at defensive end, despite the fact that they might be past it a little bit, they will still be a big danger for opposing offenses. I think that Kyler Murray really changes everything for them, and if he's able to take another step up as to last year and the year before, as he has been doing, they're definitely going to finish with a positive record, despite how tough this division is. I think that this could actually be the first year that all 4 teams from one division make the playoffs. Now on to my final team whose record I'll go to amend, and I actually haven't made any changes to the Seahawks. I think they will still finish 11-6. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, Russell Wilson, who throws a magnificent deep ball, and partnering that with DK Metcalf, who is a physical specimen, who is really, really rapid, and he's massive as well, so he's incredibly hard for defenders to cover. I think that's a real recipe for success for the Seahawks. I think that these guys will have a really good year. I think they will challenge the Rams for that top spot in the division, but it'll be really tough and it'll be a bit of a 3-horse race between the Rams, 49ers and the Seahawks. They could make a few waves in the playoffs, but they got to do a little bit better than they did last year in the playoffs or late in the season if they're going to challenge for the championship game and Super Bowl as well. Thank you guys so much for watching my amended predictions for the NFC. If you missed the AFC amended predictions, do check that out as well. It was up a couple of days ago. Also check out our new TikTok, Wall of NFL, where all the YouTube shorts go up on there as well. And also our Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. And also check out the website, wallofnfl.com, where I'll also rate all of the top 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL from 1 to 32. And I'll be updating that as we go throughout the season. So thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to let me know who you think is going to do really well this year.